Go for it, Ronnie. Go for it, Ronnie.
I know I wasn't rocking today. I must be a bit more tired today. I wasn't doing the usual headbanging to that music.
Well, I was rocking for both of us.
Oh,
so,
good. I'm pleased to hear that. Yeah.
Welcome.
Take it easy though. You don't want to overdo it, mate.
No. Yeah. I know. I
Yeah.
could spoil the title. Welcome to Still Alive.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Peter Cook had a good joke. He goes, "I'm not dead yet."
Yeah. I remember giving a speech at this rally that was in celebration of it was an animal market, cattle market that had closed down. Somewhere near Coventry, somewhere up that way. And I was giving a speech, and I said, it was years ago. I said, and I've been vegan 35 years, and I've always been in good health. And I went like that and collapsed on the stage.
Oh, right.
And people didn't know whether to laugh or be worried and call an ambulance.
I was given a talk once in Dublin, and it was about the history of the LF. And somewhere in it, I was showing something, and there's like a shot. There's like a shotgun went off. It must have been a news clip. The shotgun went off. I fell off my chair, and everybody thought
you'd been assassinated.
No, everybody I actually fell off my chair.
I'd love. Is there a video of that?
No, I don't think so. There are little clips of it, but luckily not that one.
We better get on to talking about what we're supposed to talk about instead of trying
to. What we're supposed to be talking about, Ronnie. Let's stop messing around. What's the matter with you?
Well, I know it's both of us, though, really, isn't it? Anyway, the title of today's show.
Sharing the blame.
Title of today's show is. That's your cue, Roger.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
It's well, we're looking at system change versus individual change in relation to XR, but really AR, really, animal rebellion. But also, I suppose asking the question: surely these things go together, or do they go together? Is there an issue about which one comes first, if that's even appropriate? Those kind of ideas, I think. And I think we're all sympathetic to what's going on. And at the same time, we have some questions about the strategy, in the sense that we're talking about a strategy which is to influence a deeply speciesist government to do something that they don't want to do. Is that would that be a good summary?
Yeah, I mean, I think Animal Rebellion overall are brilliant.
Oh yeah,
in total solidarity with them. I think it's probably one of the best things that's kind of happened to our movement for years, if not decades.
What, even better than the Vegan Strategist?
Oh well, no, of course not.
We had the difficult that one.
We had the strategists of vegan, like in terms of new things arising. Of course, there was the dawn of the dawn of veganism, vegan society, and all that way back in the 1940s, 50s, and there's been various things that have happened. The Animal Liberation France, that the dawn of proper dawn of vegan outreach, maybe about 25 years ago. All these things are very, very significant points in like the history of our movement, and I think Animal Rebellion is very significant as well as maybe another one of those very important things have happened. Now, Animal Rebellion talk about creating system change, and yeah, we absolutely need system change. It's absolutely vital that we do have system change, and that we have a change to what I would call an animal liberationist society, where there's widespread freeing of other animals by from the oppression caused to them by humans. Of course, we need that, so that's right. It's a question of how we achieve that. Animal Rebellion's stated aim really is to pressurize the government, is to carry out actions that put pressure on the government.
Should we have a look at that on the screen, Ronnie?
Yeah.
Because wrong one. Sorry about that. Yeah, so this is their values. It's a values page on Animal Rebellion that that we found, or Ronnie found, really, and you're quite happy with number one, which is it starts off with
anti-speciesist. Yeah, that's good. They talk about suffering rather than the kind of right to life, but I think that then that that's then followed by the next bit, which I can't quite see, which is like in a sense sort of makes up for that, because that talks about they stand against all forms of oppression, and I think that's that's excellent. That is a good statement, that first one.
Yeah, and so it's number two that you wanted to talk about, really, though, right?
Yeah. Well, you see, the aim of their campaign is like to create this kind of what they call civil resistance, which is various forms of disruptive activity, to kind of pressure the government to move our society, move the country, move the nation, the state, whatever, to plant-based agriculture. And that's great, because of course we absolutely want that. We want an end to it. We want an end to animal farming. We want an end to the fishing industry as well, of course. And Animal Rebellion are on that as well. And so there's been this tactic of disruption with a stated, really with kind of stated aim of like changing government policy, right?
Yeah.
And now that would be great if that could be achieved. Absolutely wonderful.
Well, they said it is. The change needed is huge, but achievable.
Well, I think it's achievable, but it's whether those tactics, or those tactics alone, will achieve it. And I have sort of grave doubts about that. And the reason I have grave doubts is because of the nature of the government. We're dealing with the government who are deeply speciesist, who are deeply entrenched in, their neoliberal ideology, which basically means that anything on earth, the only purpose on anything on earth is to turn a profit from it, really. That's kind of what they believe. And so to get them get them to kind of transition the nation to plant-based agriculture is like a kind of massive ask, isn't
Ronnie,
it?
You said then that alone, but I mean, if you look at the first paragraph, it says, well, would bring about our goals much quicker than relying on personal changes. So they're not opposed to those. Obviously, it's a question of what they would prioritize, right?
Yeah, but you see, I think that one of the although I said I'm a big supporter of Animal Rebellion, I've encouraged people to take part in their actions, and my wife Louise has been involved in with Animal Rebellion as well.
Still got some glue left, has she, Ronnie?
Well, the Animal Rebellion thing, she changed herself to a steering wheel of a truck blocking the entrance to a dairy depot.
Oh, that wasn't the glue one. Okay, right. Okay.
The glue was at MBR Acres. That was an anti-vivisection action. And it's great because she's a wheelchair user. Animal Rebellion have enabled her to carry out direct action without having to move, which is brilliant. And there's very few direct action organizations that would kind of allow where their form of action would allow people to do that. And so I think that's on the inclusivity front, they're brilliant. And I think the thing is that it's kind of I have a problem where they don't encourage individual change, because I think there'd be no harm in including that in their statements and press releases. That as well as wanting the government to transition, agriculture to plant-based, we also call upon
it's a recruitment thing, though, isn't it, Ronnie? Because I mean, this is the kind of one of the major planks of all pressure campaigning, right? Which is that we don't want to focus on are you vegan or you should be vegan and all that, because that's going to stop people getting involved.
Well, in fact, the recruitment of for Animal Rebellion has been largely, if not exclusively, aimed at vegans, because when they've been recruiting for their last big series of actions against the dairy industry early in September, when they were recruiting people for that, their message was calling all vegans. They're specifically aiming.
But that's new, though, isn't it? In the sense that that's not what they wanted to do originally. Is that right? Or wrong?
I'm not really sure what they wanted to do originally. I mean, Animal Rebellion is an offshoot of Extinction Rebellion, and kind of a lot of the values they have are similar to those of Extinction Rebellion. They've been kind of copied across from Extinction Rebellion.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure really at the beginning, but it kind of doesn't really make sense for somebody to call on the government to transition to agriculture to plant-based if that person themselves isn't consuming a plant-based diet, is it? That's like rather saying, I want an end to institutionalized racism, but I'll kind of carry on being racist myself. It's kind of it's like inconsistent, you see. So really, their recruiting ground would be amongst vegans.
Calling on the government, Ronnie, is that literally through the mass media? Or do they want their people to be writing to MPs, going to see them at their surgeries? Is it an old-fashioned kind of pressure campaign in that way, that you would actually go to MPs and say, I want this? But then you're back to people, aren't you? Going someplace.
I'm quite sure they'd be pleased for people to do that, but it seems to be mainly a campaign of disruption that will put pressure on the government in that way. Oh, there's all this disruption going on, we can't cope with it, so we need to kind of change things to stop this disruption. I think that's kind of
well, of course we've talked about this disruption because we all like what we've seen, but in terms of, I mean, this almost goes to this second paragraph that I was going to highlight, but I mean it goes to the amount of people that they'll be able to get to do it. And who are the people who are going to do it in the first place? So it's all a little bit. To me, it's a little bit confusing.
You see, the reason I support it isn't because I'm under any illusions. It's going to make any impact on this government. If it does make an impact on this government, that impact.
But it would if they could stop the supply of dairy, but they wouldn't be able to do that without thousands of people.
No. I mean, the idea of stopping the supply of dairy is kind of you'd need thousands and thousands of activists to do that. I mean the supply of dairy was disrupted. I mean, some supermarkets didn't have dairy products. There were a few that ran out and had signs saying, due to Animal Rebellion, you can't buy any.
For how long?
Well, they didn't say that, but that was the sign.
But I mean, like, for how long? I mean, 3 hours? I mean,
yes, but you see, I think yes. I mean, it was only for a while, but I think it's the idea of that, that somehow exerts pressure on the government. Now, you see, I think to move this government more than just a really tiny amount is, I can't see it happening because of the fundamental ideological position of the government. You see, I can't see it. But where I think their campaign is great is in raising public awareness. I think there's a huge educational aspect to their campaign, and that's why I support it. I mean, under no illusion it's going to make any difference to the government, really. But I think there's an awakening aspect to it. It's waking people up, making people think, and change, and that will change the attitudes of people, and people will go vegan because of that. Or at least they'll adopt a plant-based diet, and some may go like genuinely vegan because of that. And that's kind of why I like Animal Rebellion. I like it because I see a huge educational element in what they're doing.
What, vegan education by the back door or something?
Yeah, vegan education by just waking people up. Making people think about the thing. Maybe for the first time in their lives. Think about.
Okay. So I mean, just to, I mean, I'm a little bit confused about Animal Rebellion, because I understand what they want to do, and if they could do it, that would be great. But I mean, they're not going to embarrass this government in particular by what they do, and so is it more to do with recruiting through getting mass media coverage. And of course, we know then to get mass media coverage, you've got to do things like they've done. There's no point in, organizing a cube, as it were, because that's not going to get in the Daily Mail. So they've got a problem of kind of getting their message out there. But it's the kind of, where is the pressure coming from? Is it?
Yeah, if I could just say about the cube, I mean, it's a little bit of a, maybe slightly going off track, but I still think it's very relevant. Yeah, cubes, somebody doing a cube, yeah, it won't get in the Daily Mail, but it could get in their local newspaper. And I think people doing these activities think about, can I get something in the local paper? Can I issue a press release to the local paper about the cube that we're having in the local city or town? And Did
you see that people? I acted as the straight man to cue Ronnie up to say this point.
Yeah, well, I think vegan education through any door is brilliant. Whatever door, whether we use the the thing to the attic, or whether we use the
every door,
the front door, the windows, the chimney, whatever entrance we use, without sounding rude, for vegan education, it's brilliant, and I think it has a highly educative effect. And for instance, give an example, when Louise changed herself to steering wheel of the lorry, I did a press release to our local paper about it, and it got like half a page in the local paper. And the message wasn't just about the harmful environmental impact of animal farming, but it was also about what happens to the cows and the calves as well. I included that in there. And then someone wrote a letter the following week, as a follow-on from that got published, talking about we need to also think about the harm done by the fishing industry, and that the answer is for people to go vegan. And there was a link to the Vegan Society. So it was kind of, I was able to use that to kind of, spread the vegan message. And I think people in other areas need to think about that as well. Use your local media, make the very best of these actions, by kind of using them to spread the message even further.
Yeah, and I think that's we're kind of talking, this is getting a bit circular here, in the sense that we're now talking about waking people up, raising awareness. People are saying in the chat and stuff. I mean, of the government raising raising
awareness of ordinary people.
Yeah, but obviously the government personal changes, though.
Yeah, well, the thing is, if you what these actions do, the government will be made aware, and the government response is to bring in repressive legislation against protests, isn't it? This has been their reaction to, really, first of all, to Extinction Rebellion, and then the Just Stop Oil and people like that. The reaction of the government is we'll bring in even more draconian legislation to try and stop these people, because the government want to please their own supporters, and that's why they do it. But to me, it's I like it because I see it as another form of. I see it as another form of vegan education, because if we're going to change the system, we do have to change ordinary people.
That's what I'm saying, though, Ronnie. If you were to say to Animal Rebellion, this is another form of vegan education, they'd say, no, it's not, wouldn't they?
To be quite honest, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think they. Yeah, I think I'm quite sure they'd accept that it raises awareness in ordinary people. That isn't the stated aim of doing it, but I'm quite sure they know that is going to be an effect of it. I'm absolutely sure that they'd know and they'd realize that. And
Benny in the Jets is saying that system change and individual change need to meet in the middle, and I think that's probably where we're all going to end up, isn't it?
Well, the thing is that, you see, system change kind of has to involve individual change, and the reason for that, how are we going to get animal liberation unless a substantial number of people believe in it? We're not going to achieve animal liberation while only a tiny minority believe in it, as is the case at the moment. We've got to increase the number of people who kind of are animal liberationists in their mindset, who are like vegans, like properly vegan in their outlook and their behavior and their lifestyles. Unless we do that, we're never going to achieve animal liberation. So there's that, basic idea. But it's also that if you kind of, if you're up against a government that's deeply speciesist, that's fanatically neoliberal, then we need to change that government. We need to change that government to a radically different one. How do we do that? That's done at the ballot box, isn't it? The reason why we've got such an appalling government kind of here in the UK is because almost 30% of people eligible to vote voted for them. They're not here by magic. They weren't just imposed from the sky. People voted these buggers in. Ordinary people voted for these, just under 30% voted for them. That's why we've got this government. It's not by magic. So you have to change the way people vote, right? And to change the way people vote, you have to change people's own ideology, the way that people think. And I think that, that the fundamental way to do that is through vegan education.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to argue with you, Ronnie. Obviously, it's just an interesting one in the connection. You see, I wonder whether I get the impression, because there was a lot of tension between the idea of Extinction Rebellion and Animal Rebellion at one point, and now there seems to be a distinction between the two. They seem to have kind of separated in order for them to be able to more probably be honest with what they want to say, especially in relation to Animal Rebellion. I think that might be the case, and that's probably why they're much more open now to talk about veganism and stuff.
Well, I've noticed in some of the more recent stuff that has come from Animal Rebellion, with quotes from people that they've included in their like official publications, people have been quoted as talking about the plight of the cows and the calves. It hasn't just been about the climate crisis. It's so that's starting to be included, and I wonder the reason is because they've had to recruit vegans, because someone who wants to take direct action to protect the environment, and they're not a vegan and they're not an animal liberationist, and they're still human centric in their views, they're not going to join Animal Rebellion. They're going to join Extinction Rebellion, aren't they? Or Just Stop Oil, or one of these other ones. They're not going to join Animal Rebellion. So it's really, you have to recruit from vegans, right? But so they've recruited a load of people that are animal liberationists, and whose prime focus is on the plight of the cows and the calves and the other animals that are oppressed, by the farming and fishing industries. And so that they've got a grassroots that isn't in accord with what the kind of leadership or the organizers are saying. You've got a grassroots whose focus is different. A grassroots whose focus is on the animals that are directly oppressed by the farming industry. And so probably maybe they've had to change, what they say, in accordance with that.
Yeah, because they obviously, I mean, to take on disruptions, then you need bodies for that. And, in terms of, well, let's disrupt the supply of cow milk, who's more likely to go yes to that than vegans?
Well, it's vegans. The only people they're going to get is vegans. Non-vegans aren't going to do that. They're going to do some other thing, aren't they? Why are they going to disrupt the industry that supplies the product that they're still drinking? They're not, are they? So you've got to recruit for vegans.
I think what I'm trying to get at is if they, if there was as promotional towards this personal change, which they say is going to take too long, but that's where they're going to get their troops from.
Well, yes, exactly. That the more vegans there are, the more potential recruits there are for Animal Rebellion. So creating more vegans is building their army. Where are these people going to come from? And they're going to need more and more, because of course people will burn out. People will be arrested. There's only a certain, for anyone, there's only a certain amount of that.
Are we missing something here? Because some of the argument about pressure campaigns is that we want animal liberationists, but they're not necessarily going to be vegan. Is that the kind of little kind of slip that we're missing here?
Yeah, but like, how can you're demanding something of someone else that you're not prepared to do yourself? How does that
No,
work?
but they are, though. That's the thing.
But
That's what I'm saying.
that's like, yeah, but it's kind of, but the other thing to kind of remember today that's different than, you know, like back in the day in the 70s and all that, when we kind of started, it was to actually, you know, eat out as a vegan was really difficult. To get any food that was any way kind of processed, and as you cook from basic ingredients, get any food that was any way processed, even bread that was vegan or even vegetarian, was like really difficult. So what happened was you got a lot of people then that kind of became activists and kind of then became vegan, became activists first, and also, you know, the kind of vegan education didn't have a very high profile. In fact, it virtually had no profile. And so all these kind of more high profile campaigns like anti-vivisection, hunt saboteurs attracted activists. And then a lot of those activists became vegan because of other activists that were already there that were vegan. And that's tended to how people became vegan back in the day. It's totally different now. It's kind of so easy to go out and, you know, get vegan stuff now, that it's kind of, it's sort of in a sense easier for someone to live on a vegan diet than it is for them to become an activist. And that's what's happened, and that's one of the reasons why, you know, so few vegans are activists, and the vast majority of vegans are not active. That's the reason why that's kind of changed. So asking someone to actually go vegan is really quite a small ask these days. It's a kind of tiny ask compared with what it used to be.
But you've just said it yourself. The problem is that they might go yes to that, but then they don't become active, and so
yes, and so that's that. You know, that's another very important thing we need to do, which is to encourage vegans to become active and encourage vegans to be educators. And the thing is, you know, most vegans aren't going to be able to do or take part in animal rebellion actions, you know, for various reasons, because their personal circumstances, you know, because their own nervousness or whatever, they're not going to be able to do that. But there's still a really important role for those people to play as educators. You know, those people can still do information stalls. They can still
well, this is going to be one of our future program pretty soon. We're going to start going through.
To me, it's part of a whole. To me, I kind of don't see the separation. I see this as like an onslaught, you know, like this kind of educational onslaught. Ronnie, in a way, you're bypassing the point in the sense that the people running pressure campaigns, they want a separation in order to get their troops who are not necessarily vegans. And also they would then be very dismissive about vegans anyway, because most of them are not active. So what's the point in getting them? Well, I think what you've got to do is, you know, as I always say, you know, non-active vegans need to be encouraged to become active in whatever way they can. That might be.
You say that, Ronnie? I've never heard you say that before.
No, neither have I. And then, you know, some of those vegans will want to kick ass. You know, that'll be what they want. That'll be what their circumstances allows, and that's what they're, you know, where their personalities take them. They want to kick ass. You know, that'll be, and great. You know, they've now got an opportunity to kick ass and be involved in something that kind of spreads the vegan message at the same time. You know, and this is why I think, you know, animal rebellion such a good thing. You know, it provides an opportunity for those people to be involved in something, or it might not ostensibly be educational, but in actual fact, it is.
It's really interesting the change. I was speaking to a vegan at the Irish Vegan Gala yesterday, and they automatically went up to somebody at this Irish Vegan Gala and just said, "Oh, how long have you been vegan?" See, that's kind of like probably a question that we didn't necessarily ask in the 80s, but everybody asks it now. And so this is what's kind of, in a way, caused a bit of friction, in the sense that because the person said back to them, even though they were running a stall at the Irish Vegan Guy, "Oh, I'm not vegan."
But what stall was it? Was it like a rescue
No,
stall? Or...
I think it was a drum thing or something. There was
yeah, you know, there will be people at vegan events that aren't vegan. I mean, at the vegan fairs over here.
No, but it's the same. So say we imagine like Bernie Wright's anti-greyhound campaign in Dublin. You know, modern day vegans who trot along to that, they're probably going to go around everybody, you know, hey, you're great, you know, and all that with the banners and that. How long have you been vegan and stuff? And so, you know, that's where you suddenly, the vegan thing almost becomes a problem for people who are going to go, no, let's not go there, kind of thing. You know, like keep it quiet almost.
I think the thing is, I think it's really important to recruit those people to veganism. It's really important to, because you know that happens with all these single issue campaigns, that you will still get people joining them who aren't vegan.
I'm agreeing with you, but I'm trying to get into the psychology of animal rebellion here, and if I'm following the general kind of,
I don't think if you're it depends what you're calling for. You see if you're calling for you know, an end to hunting, if you're calling for an end to experiments on beagle dogs, you know, if you're calling for an end even to the fur trade, you're going to get people come along and join those campaigns that aren't vegan because they're kind of focused on that single issue. If you're calling for an end to animal agriculture, then you are, for 99.9% of people coming along to that, will be people who are vegan, or people at least that consume a plant-based diet, if you see what I mean. Because, you know, those other things, those people that are campaigning against experiments on beagle dogs, they themselves aren't doing experiments on beagle dogs. You know, the ones campaigning against hunting, they themselves aren't involved in hunting, right? But someone coming along who was a meat eater, that coming along to an animal rebellion thing, they themselves would be doing the very thing that the campaign is against. And so I can't really see that happening. I can't really see people other than vegans getting involved with animal rebellion.
Do you think that ultimately, though, that's what they would want, because they need as many people as possible? And I don't suppose.
I think the plant-based thing is because it's aimed at the government. I don't think that's kind of used as a recruiting thing. I think it's because, you know, they got a campaign, they want the government to change agriculture, and so they're going to say plant-based because their campaign is just confined to the food system, you know, and veganism is a lot wider than that. It's not just about food, it's about, you know, it's opposition to all forms of oppression of other animals. But because they're focused just on the food system, that's why they're calling it plant-based, and I can kind of understand why they're doing that.
Yeah. Let's we've only got about 25 minutes left, so, and I know there's a couple of issues you want to bring up as well, but shall we switch to these slides and just go through those?
Yes, yeah.
Because this is almost a little bit of a teaser for an upcoming vegan time tunnel, but not for a couple of weeks. But this is Kathleen Janaway, and she's talking the 90s here, and she's always it's kind of in the ball game, you know, the ballpark of what we're talking about here. And yet I get the impression that she's saying we're going to have to get to the people.
Yes.
You know,
there's a slight kind of something I'd say about, I mean, what she said there really is great, but you see, the politicians will go on until they're frightened of losing the votes, you see. But I tend to think that a politician who's deeply speciesist and is deeply kind of immersed in neoliberal ideology, it isn't going to change their views because they're frightened of losing.
Oh, you mean she's implying that politician will change rather than you would change the politician?
Yeah, I think you've got to change the politician. I think, you see, if we create more vegans, and like, I'd appeal on this for, you know, all vegans like listening to this, you know, do get involved in activism. You know, some very brave people out there putting themselves on the line, being arrested, going to jail and stuff like that. You know, now you don't have to do that. I mean, if you're able to do that, great, but you don't have to do that to be part of this, you know, wonderful effort to you know, bring about animal liberation. But what you do need to do is become involved in vegan education in some way, even if it's just door dropping leaflets, helping an information stall, anything like that. These really simple things that you can kind of be involved in. We need to create this mass mobilization. And Animal Rebellion want to create a mass mobilization in the sense of people taking.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, we're back to the final sentence here. It's a mass of the people we need to get to, right? But
yeah, that's absolutely.
If you're talking about bringing in, I mean, their phrase is a plant-based system, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, who is more likely to be demanding that?
Well, you see, the thing is, what we need is we need enough vegans, enough people to become vegan, so that those people can have a real effect on society and on the direction of society. I think there's been some research done that says that's about 25%.
Yeah.
You don't have to change everyone. I mean,
are you saying then, Ronnie, that Animal Rebellion might be jumping the gun, if we can say that?
Well, I think that their ideas based on research. It's like relating to movements like the civil rights movement, where they're saying is it 3.5% of people?
Yeah, they said 3.5, which is a very low number, isn't it?
Of taking direct action. But that 25%, or if you're talking about, electing a government, maybe it comes in at just under 30%, because that's. I mean, don't forget that our government had a really large majority, and they were elected by less than 30%, and that was with a big majority. See, so you could get a government, with lesser percentage of voters than that. But you see, the thing is, although that's a higher number than 3.5%, all that involves is someone going along and putting a cross on a ballot paper in the right place. It doesn't involve people like chaining themselves and gluing themselves and getting arrested or anything like that, sitting in the road. It doesn't involve any of that. It's like a really easy, simple thing that people can do that could create massive change. And the more vegans we create, the more vegans we'll have who want to become politicians. And the more vegans
the thing that's missing, Ronnie, from what we've said, I think, is active vegans, because it's the active vegans that are more likely to take part in the AR.
I think
so. That's the bit. I mean, we've got a lot of vegans now, according to all the stats. It's just that we don't have a lot of active vegans. So that is you can't send your troops in until you've got the army, right?
Well, yes, and I think it's vitally important to build the army, and we build the army through education. You educate enough people. You educate enough people to be vegans, and then you'll get vegans wanting to do all sorts of things. You'd have more vegan politicians, you'll have more vegan doctors, you'll have more vegan sports people, and you'll have more vegan activists for Animal Rebellion, right? So that's fundamental. And what I'm saying is that every vegan, pretty much, can be involved in education. Because it's like really simple and easy to do vegan education, and like. We can all do it, and that's key. It's the key that this action by Animal Rebellion needs to be backed up, or it needs to go in tandem with a huge amount of education in other ways, with a huge amount of like quiet education.
But there's two things here, Ronnie. Yes, getting more vegans. I mean, like I've always said, there's nothing more important now in our movement than get more ethical vegans. But from your influence, if you like, it's equally as important that those vegans become activists as well. And so those two prongs, if we could achieve more vegans who are activists, then we're going to probably get somewhere. And then Animal Rebellion's job, as it were, is a lot easier, isn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah. The more vegan activists you get, in terms of what I'm talking about, is active educators, really. Outreaches.
Yeah.
The more of those we get, the more people we turn vegan, and then some of hopefully a lot of them will become active, and so it escalates and it builds and builds. And of course, some of those people will want to do Animal Rebellion stuff, and that's great. So the whole thing increases. So vegan education is like vital to everything. It's absolutely vital to everything, and it can. And what I'm saying is that all vegans really can do it. If somebody wants to go and do Animal Rebellion stuff, that's brilliant. But if you can't do that, then do some quieter form of outreach. It's something for everyone, and we need to be there needs to be this solidarity. We need to feel we're all part of this, this drive, this mobilization in whatever role we can play, that we're all connected. The person that's kind of, delivering the leaflets is kind of connected also to Animal Rebellion because they're all part of the same struggle.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't disagree with that in the sense that, I mean, that's almost the rationale of the press office, the idea that, you got the activists and you got the other people explaining, you got the other people trying to do the education and this kind of thing. Let's move on to this one. The reason I thought this was interesting was, again, is that they focus on the people in a way, the people. And so it's talking about, we need some fundamental change. There's a challenge of the environmental crisis, and this was written in 1991. That's incredible, kind of in that sense. But again, it's the people facing up to the challenge, and it's the people doing something about it.
Yeah, because it fundamentally is people. You see, there's this kind of, it's kind of like the system. You see, people view the system as something separate to ordinary people. Somehow like something that's kind of being imposed. It's a bit like how they view the government, that is separate to ordinary people, but they're not. There's a sense in which we're all the system. Because we, by our activities, we kind of, often tacitly support the system, and it's through our actions as individuals, like a lot of individual acting collectively, that can change the system, through, thankfully in the society we've got, you can change a lot you can't change everything by voting, but you can change a lot by doing that. And we've got the opportunity to do that, and to create a fairly peaceful transition to a better administration. And we need to seize that. We haven't done that.
The former anarchist in you be doing this now, Ronnie.
Well, I'm still an anarchist in terms of the sort of society I'd like to see. I think as an eventual society on it, people are mistaken about anarchism, and in a lot of people kind of link it to chaos, think it's some form of chaos. But what we got at the moment is chaos. We've got filthy rich people on one hand and other people starving in the streets on the other hand. And all the oppression of animals,
and the world crumbling.
And the world crumbling. We've got chaos now that's been brought
that's
about
chaos,
by neoliberalism and capitalism. That's chaos. We've got chaos now. Anarchism isn't chaos. Anarchism is society that's highly organized, and kind of involves localism in things that, like, we need nano-organization, nano-management of society, kind of right down to the local level. And I see anarchism as providing that capitalism doesn't provide that, and that's what we need as at the end.
We're in. I'm just trying to move on a little bit.
Oh, no, I'm saying the question is not. It's with me. It's kind of. It's not the society I want to see at the end of the day, which is very much in line with anarchist principles. With me, it's how you get there, and I believe how you get there is you seize the state and you dismantle the state. I think that's the only. That's difficult, but I see that as the only realistic way of doing it. We have to take the state.
You're a Marxist anarchist now, but
that's like yes, a lot of I'm an eco-socialist. A lot of socialists believe that. It's not. Socialism isn't all about like this centralized, controlled by the state. It's really. Proper socialism isn't about that. Proper socialism is about actually getting into the state.
Now, this slide here is kind of saying what I think we've said over the last 3/4 of an hour, in the sense that we need a trend towards compassionate living the vegan way. That was a phrase of hers a lot. This is Kathleen Janaway still. And that will bring about the fundamental change. That's her argument. But again, the starting place is the individual changing, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. The starting place is because there isn't, in a sense, there's nothing beyond the individual. All these other things are construct. That a government is made up of a load of individuals coming together. Like what happens is, like, we elect a political representative in a local constituency, and that person then goes to Parliament, and they're involved in the lawmaking and the voting and all that. But it's down to, you know, who's elected locally, and that's down to the mindset of local people as to who they elect locally. You see, so it comes everything like comes down to the individual and changing individual. Unless we change individuals on really quite a large scale, we're not going to get system change.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be a reasonable thing. I'm getting near the end. Well, this is the last one on this, really, but I always include this one. This is Matthew Cole speaking in 2014, and it's the language is a little bit academic, but this is where it's almost like suggesting that there's going to be it's going to be symbiotic in a way. He says the vegan telos, meaning aim and object, combines compassionate non-exploitation of other animals with an emancipated vegan self. In other words, somebody who can think critically, and a more compassionate human society. Vegan ethics from the beginning, Matthew studied the beginning of veganism as a social movement, was directed towards these interconnected goals of transforming human beings and transforming human society, both flowing from a fundamental reconfiguration of human, non-human animal relations. So it's a little bit wordy, but he's basically saying that, you know, this, you know, individual change will bring about, you know, a different society, which is what the pioneers believed, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's the only way it can be done. It's the only way. It's the only way we change society as a fundamental level is by changing individuals and changing a sufficient number of individuals. We don't have to change everyone. As I said, maybe 25, 30%, something like that. And then what tends to happen is there's then the rapid escalation. Once that idea takes hold, there tends to be a rapid escalation in the change. You've kind of had that with things like, you know, like gay marriage. At one time that was like totally unacceptable. Once a certain number of people began to accept that it was okay and was a good thing, then like society has changed pretty much. I mean, there are still some people that you know don't accept it, but overall, like most people do, and that's like an example of that, you know, rapid transformation of how a society thinks, because, you know, the number of people believing in that has reached a certain amount.
Yeah, I didn't notice my camera had just dropped off its pedestal, but no,
Oh,
never
dear.
mind. If I may try a summary, then, I mean, from your position, ironically, the main achievement of animal liberation, animal rebellion, even though they kind of, their principles are not really there, is to have been a vegan education initiative in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's why I like animal rebellion, because I see that as the main, you know, the main thing that's going to come out of what they do, an awakening of people and more people becoming vegan because of it.
This is an interesting, challenging one. No social movement has ever won through street outreach conversations. So,
it's not just about street outreach conversations. It's about, but no society has ever changed unless you change a substantial number of individuals, because how do you, who are the voters? You know, unless we change the way, you know, change the way a sufficient number of people think, we're going to continue to have governments voted in that are pro the oppression of other animals. You know, how's that ever going to change? Unless we if most people don't.
I don't think we've ever had one that's not been, have we?
No, we haven't, and that's because we haven't got enough vegans.
I mean, the best we ended up was 1979 with Labour, and they were kind of welfareists. So.
Yeah, we had the welfare state. You know, was brought in. That was a huge step forward. It's now been, you know, massively attacked and dismantled, you know, through decades of like neoliberal thinking. You know, that needs to change. It's about improving things for humans as well as other animals, of course. You know, the type of, you know, administration we need. But that you only change governments by changing ordinary people, because they don't get imposed by the sky. They're voted. These people are voted in. And who votes for them, and why do people vote in a certain way? They vote in a certain way because of their fundamental attitudes, and we have to change those attitudes. It's the only way we do it. It is the only way.
Here's a real challenging question for you, Ronnie. Do you think that the reason that a lot of people now in the movement are saying that veganism is apolitical, we shouldn't bring human politics into it and all that, is because they've seen that around the globe, if you look at the States or Europe and Britain, things have moved to the right. And so therefore, if we don't, as it were, if we make veganism political in the sense that we have understood it so which is kind of, we're starting to think about left ideas, then we're not doing ourselves any favors, because more and more people are not even going to be in the position to listen to us in the first place. In the same way as you're saying that the government is not going to listen to Animal Rebellion because it's such a right-wing neoliberal thing. If you've got a society that is voting them in, and more people are moving that way as well socially, then it's double trouble, isn't it?
It makes our task harder, but the answer is still the same. The answer is education. If people are subject to sort of neoliberal consumerist propaganda, which is they're bombarded with all the time, the only way we combat that is by providing our own information as a counter to that. We haven't got the money they've got. We haven't got the control of the media they've got, but what we've got is numbers. We've got massive numbers of vegans and massive numbers of vegans that can go out and spread our own information. They've got the money. They've got the conventional media.
It's a terrible dilemma for me as a sociologist. Because you could say, well, Animal Rebellion have achieved that. They've been able to get onto the mass media in a way that ordinary vegan education, if you like, can't do that. But the only way they can get onto the mass media is by doing stuff that's going to be controversial and going to.
Yeah, the thing is that there are people that I'm just looking at the time because we've got a couple of news items to cover, haven't we? Yeah. But very quickly, some people are going to be upset by it and moan and groan, but those people are probably a lost cause anyway. We don't have to change everyone. We've just got to change enough people so we're in charge. And then the other ones have got to, you've got to eat a vegan diet because that's all there is, mate.
That's easy, Ronnie.
Hard luck. Well, I think it's easy if it's enough of us. If there's enough of us, what are they going to do?
That's what I'm just saying.
What you've got to remember is most people.
There's none of us in the government, and most people are voting for them and moving away from us.
Yeah, well, that means that that is, all that means is we've got to work harder at the education. That's the only thing. We've got to combat their propaganda. With our own information. That's the only way. That's the only way, and we've got the numbers to do that. If we could mobilize those numbers,
I know the answer to this, but do you think that this movement understands the gravity of the situation that we're facing?
No, I don't. I think that a lot of people who call themselves vegan don't understand the actual true situation of the world. That the fact that you've got like one species that's horrendously and unimaginably to the degree that it's taken place has oppressed other animals. That this horrendous situation that we're in, and so it's the duty of all of us to do our utmost to end that. We're members of an horrifically oppressor species, and as members of a horrifically oppressor species, it is our grave duty. It's our serious duty to end that and not to do the minimum we can to end it, but to try to do the maximum we can to end it. That is our duty. The moral baseline isn't veganism. The moral baseline is vegan activism. Nothing short of vegan activism is morally acceptable in the situation that we're in.
I should have bought one of those drums yesterday, shouldn't I?
You should have done. Anyway, we need to talk. We need to talk about some news items because we promised.
What do you want to talk about next? We've got 5 minutes. What do you want to do?
Well, there's kind of a few things. I mean, first of all, I don't know whether you want to put we had some very, very good news regarding the vegan campout here in the UK. You can put up the vegan campout poster. The vegan campout. There was a load of controversy last year. Lots of fighting between vegans, well, not physically, but certainly on social media, because the vegan campout last year was held at a place that also hosted shooting, fishing, and animal farming. And I'm very pleased that it was due to be at the same place again this year. That's now been changed. It's now taken place at somewhere that does none of those things. It's somewhere. It's like it's a place that's connected with, motor racing and old cars and that. And yeah, I'm not a big fan of motor racing, but I'm
Bad for the
certainly
environment, Ronnie. Bad for the
I
environment.
much prefer it
Is this
to,
their fourth venue or third venue or
yeah,
what?
yeah, and I think I think it's brilliant that this has been changed, and I think the Jordan who organised the camp out, deserves praise and thanks for changing the venue, because it means that a lot more vegans will feel able to go there, and we'll be able to kind of concentrate on what they should be concentrating on, instead of fighting and arguing over where the camp out is. So I think that's it's great that that's been changed, and I'm sure more people will feel able to go there. I think the other good thing about camp outs is one of the things that came out of the dispute was that there are other camp outs as well, that some animal sanctuaries are hosting camp outs now to raise funds. So you've got this big national one, but there's also going to be quite a few regional ones, and I think a lot of the people that for whatever reason can't go
for about 5 years, Declan Bowens of Back into Daylight has been toying with the idea of having a camp out, or a gathering kind of thing at the sanctuary, clearing out one of his big sheds and everything. It's just it's a heck of a lot of work for a sanctuary to get involved in.
Yeah, some are starting to do it because it's a good fundraiser, and obviously they're desperate need of funds. Like a lot of them lost money during the COVID. They weren't able to do their ordinary fundraising, but I don't see that as a kind of, I see it as complementary. I think a lot of people will be able to go to the more local and regional ones that can't go to the big camp out for some reason. So I think altogether these things are good, and hopefully a lot of vegan activism.
I wonder if this one's going to escape controversy. I imagine the inclusion of Cosmic Skeptic for the second time might cause a few waves.
I think it depends if people kind of know about Cosmic Skeptic things.
Yeah.
I kind of don't know, but but I'm very, very pleased that this.
So what's your next bit then?
My next bit is, well, it's kind of about another camp and another.
You got a minute. Go on.
And I got a minute. Yeah, I suppose the other bit of news is, sadly there was a hunt sab run over fairly recently. She was, hit by a car driven by a hunt supporter. We seem to see more of these violent attacks on hunt sabs. I'm wondering if a solution to this is to put pressure on the masters of the hunt, because they control everything. It's very hierarchical, and all these hunt supporters and that kind of still kowtow to the masters. So I think, maybe one way of stopping this is to put some sort of pressure on the masters of the hunt to say, unless you stop this, then something unpleasant is going to happen to you.
It worked in Essex, because we ended up with a double spread Daily Mirror thing, and we photocopied it and gave it to the master, and he had a word with everybody and calm them all down. And
it does work. When I was sabbing, it used to work as well, and I think I'm not suggesting anything unlawful. But I think a way of go to the top, like the hunt thugs. Yeah, the hunt thugs are the ones that do the nasties, but the master can stop them. So go, or the joint masters, isn't it now?
Sky, are you going to join us for the last minute?
But hopefully she's not as badly injured as could have been, the woman in question, and wish her all the best for a speedy recovery for the injury she's had, and I really salute the bravery of the Sabs, going out there and, doing what they're doing.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so I think we've just about brought it to a thing, and here's the boss.
Hey,
I thought we were the boss, Roger.
You are the boss.
We are the boss, yeah.
Well, you're definitely the boss of the morning time.
I just caught you getting dressed, I think, Sky, there. I was
like, get the finishing touches on. Like, I don't even know.
That would have made an interesting. We'd have got more viewers, wouldn't we, if you come a bit earlier on?
Oh, I don't know about that. But hey, Sky, what's your show? What's your show today?
The show is nutritionist Nelsie. We're going to talk about men's health. Today is the health day. It's kind of a switching of gears.
The men's week or something, is it?
It's National Men's Health Awareness Month, so I use this time to talk about men's health. I grow my beard out to grow to
Well, look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Eh?
Yeah, you're looking like a '70s porn star, looking good. The
So you
Yeah,
watch
well, thanks
70s
for the
porn. You
encouragement
watch
there,
70s
Sky. I think
porn,
we
then,
might
Jack.
leave it there,
Yeah.
mate.
You've revealed yourself there.
Yeah, of course. What do you think I grew up on?
It's time for your show, so have a good one. And me and Ronnie and Sky will say goodbye.
Yeah, take
Yes.
care. See you next week, everyone.
Make sure if you're watching on any channel other than the Vegan of Course channels, head on over there. Head on over to Vegan of Course or one of our channels. Or if you're on Vegan Review, you're cool to stick around, and we'll be on in just a second.
Yes, indeed.
Thanks.
Bye for now, folks.
Bye, everybody.